In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where hope flickered like a dying candle in the void, Sergeant Elias Thorne of the Crimson Fists chapter braced against the violent shudder of his Thunderhawk gunship. The descent to Erebus Prime felt wrong from the start. Not just the bone-rattling turbulence through the ash-choked skies, but something deeper, more insidious. A voice crept into his mind, not through the vox, but slithering directly into his thoughts like icy fingers tracing his spine. "Thorne," it whispered, soft as silk, laced with the echo of a child's distant sob. The boy he'd failed to save on Cadia, his small body crushed under falling rubble. Thorne's gauntleted hand tightened around his chainsword's hilt, the weapon's idle hum a feeble anchor. "Just the engines," he muttered to himself, but his heart pounded harder. The warp was bleeding through here. Reports from orbital scans had warned of rifts, but nothing prepared a man for the way it clawed at your soul. As the gunship neared the surface, Thorne glanced at his brothers. Brother Cale adjusted his plasma cannon's coils, his face a mask of stoic resolve hiding the ghosts of past battles. Young brother Elias fiddled with his Meltagun's power pack, his enthusiasm a spark in the gloom. Brother Silas, fresh from the scouts, scanned the Auspex feeds nervously. Captain Lucius Varric stood at the ramp's edge, unhelmed, his scarred visage scanning the horizon. "Remember Rin's world," Varric voxed, his tone steady but edged with steel. "We rose from ashes before. We'll do it again." The words bolstered Thorne, a brief peak of camaraderie amid the mounting dread. The gunship slammed into the landing zone with a thunderous crash, ramps hissing open amid the skeletal ruins of Hive Mortalis. Dust storms whipped up like vengeful spirits, clogging Thorne's helmet filters and turning the world to a gray haze. He led his squad out, 10 Astartes brothers, each a tower of crimson ceramite etched with battle honors from a dozen campaigns. Cale lumbered beside him, plasma gun slung low, his broad shoulders scarred from past fights. Elias checked his Meltagun with eager hands. At the fore strode Varric, his power armor bulkier from augmetic reinforcements, Thunderhammer resting like a judge's gavel on his pauldron. Varric's face twisted into a grim smile. "Eyes open, fists ready," he growled over the vox. "Heretics have invited the abyss. We send it back." They plunged into the Underhive's maw, a labyrinth of collapsed corridors and forgotten manufactorums where the air hung heavy with the stench of decay. Narrow tunnels snaked like arteries in a diseased body, walls coated in bioluminescent slime that throbbed faintly, sinking with an unseen pulse that made Thorne's skin crawl under his armor. Puddles of viscous ooze gave off a sour chemical stench. The Auspex in Thorne's helm chirped erratically. Life readings swarmed the display but distorted, flickering like ghosts. The voices returned bolder now, a chorus tailored to each warrior. For Cale, it was echoes of past losses accusing him of abandonment. "You ran, coward," they hissed. Cale's step faltered, his massive frame trembling. Thorne gripped his arm. "Push through, brother. The warp feeds on doubt. Starve it." The squad paused at a junction, Silas spotting faint runes scratched into the ferrocrete, chaos symbols that seemed to writhe when stared at too long. "Trap?" Elias asked, voice steady but eyes wide. Varric shook his head. "Press on. Delay gives the enemy strength." Tension built as they advanced, the squad's banter fading into terse whispers. Silas shared stories of his homeworld to lighten the mood, an agri world lost to tyrannid swarms. But his voice cracked when the whispers targeted him, promising reunion with his devoured family if he just listened. The air grew warmer, oppressive, like the breath of a predator lurking in the dark. Thorne felt a momentary lull, a false calm, as if the Underhive held its breath. Then, without warning, the first ambush exploded in a cavernous chamber riddled with shattered pipes, spewing corrosive steam that burned exposed cabling on their armor. Cultists erupted from hidden alcoves, gaunt, feverish wretches in tattered robes, their bodies marked with chaotic sigils that pulsed with unholy light. Eyes blazing with warp-induced mania, they chanted guttural curses that vibrated in Thorn's chest, making his teeth grind. From rifts in the air, strange entities materialized, shifting and reforming, launching bolts of iridescent flame that scorched the ground. "Contact!" Thorn bellowed, Chainsword roaring to life. He charged the nearest cultist. Bodies fell and the chamber filled with the sounds of battle. Bolters thundered in response, shells detonating in bursts of promethium that lit the chamber like hellfire. Elias surged forward, Meltagun barking, sending a horror back into the air as it dissolved into a choking vapor. But the demon's essence lingered, reforming into a swirling mist that whispered his deepest shame, the hesitation during his neophyte trials, the fear that he wasn't worthy of Dorn's legacy. Elias froze for a heartbeat and a demon struck him. He collapsed, grievously wounded and screaming. Thorn whirled, Chainsword felling the threat. He knelt by Elias, the young Marine's eyes wide with terror. "Don't listen to them," Elias gasped, hand clutching Thorn's pauldron. Life slipped from him in seconds. He went limp. The squad fought on, but the loss hit them hard. A valley of grief amid the frenzy. Varric swung his hammer through the enemy ranks, his roar rallying them. "Avenge him for the fists!" The skirmish ended in a haze of smoke and silence, the wounded and fallen left where they fell. Thorn wiped residue from his blade, his breath ragged. "One down," Cale muttered, reloading. But the victory was fleeting. Echoes of Elias's last words lingered in their minds, amplified by the whispers. They pressed deeper, the path narrowing into claustrophobic crawl spaces where armor scraped against walls, sparks flying. Hours blurred into a grueling march, punctuated by minor clashes, fending off lone horrors that skittered from vents, their laughter echoing long after they were gone. Silas found a moment of hope, spotting an old imperial aquila etched on a wall, a remnant of faith that bolstered them briefly. He traced it with a finger, murmuring a prayer, and for a heartbeat the voices quieted, a small peak of resolve. But the descent wore on, exhaustion creeping in like fog. Thorn's muscles ached despite his enhancements, the psychic pressure building like a storm. They emerged into a vast sub-level, once a forge temple, now desecrated, altars smeared with blasphemous runes. Here the voices turned vicious, personal daggers. For Thorn it was Lyra again, his quiet love, a chapter serf who'd mended his wounds after battles, her gentle touch a rare light in his grim life. "You abandoned me to the flames," her voice cracked, conjuring vivid flashes, a chaos boarding on their strike cruiser, demons swarming the halls, Lyra's face lost to the fire as Thorn fought elsewhere. He stumbled, vision blurring, but Cale pulled him up. "Sergeant, stay with us." Thorn nodded, shoving the pain down, but it festered like an untreated wound. A secondary ambush hit, more cultists, reinforced by flamers belching ethereal fire. The fight was brutal, close quarters. Thorn's Chainsword jammed briefly with debris, forcing him to resort to hand-to-hand. Varric saved Silas from a collapsing ceiling, pulling him clear as debris rained down. They cleared the room, but Brother Galen took a psychic blow that left him incoherent. Cale, seeing there was no recovery, ended his suffering to prevent further torment. Morale dipped. "We're bleeding, brothers," Silas whispered, doubt creeping in. Finally, the rift loomed, a colossal cavern where reality frayed, the air rippling like a disturbed pond over a mass grave. The tear pulsed with malevolent energy, borders shifting in nauseating hues. Festering greens that evoked rot, purples that seared the eyes. Demons spewed forth in waves, shambling horrors corrupted by the warp. flying creatures darting overhead, their shrieks piercing eardrums. The squad formed up, bolters blazing in disciplined volleys. At the rift's heart stood the Guardian, a thousand-sunned sorcerer, his ornate blue armor alive with writhing runes that whispered incantations. His helm was a yawning void, amplifying a cacophony of tormented souls. "Embrace the symphony of chaos," he intoned, voice a multi-layered echo of agony. Psychic lashes whipped out, crackling with ethereal lightning. One snared Silas, the young marine convulsing as visions assaulted him. The Emperor's throne shattering, laughing gods, devouring stars. He babbled of eternal melodies. Thorn severed the tendril with a savage cut, but Silas was left shattered, eyes vacant. "Leave him," Varric ordered grimly. "We end this now." The battle peaked in fury. Varric barreled into the fray, Thunderhammer arcing in devastating sweeps that scattered cultists. But the voices struck him hard. Visions of the Crimson Fist's near annihilation, dead comrades pleading for surrender. He hesitated, and an infernal flame washed over him, damaging his armor and leaving him badly burned. Varric roared defiance, shattering the beast, but pain etched his face. "Thorn, plant the charges," he commanded, voice hoarse. Thorn fought through a swarm, dodging a rusted blade that grazed his side, injecting numbness. Reinforcements stormed in. Colonel Mira Voss and her battered Erebusian 47th Regiment. Gaunt soldiers in flak armor crusted with filth, laser guns blazing. Voss, a wiry veteran with eyes like chipped obsidian, barked orders amid the chaos. Her chimera transports ground to a halt, disgorging troops who formed firing lines. But the whispers ravaged her men. One guardsman, Hale, heard his son's playful laugh from the rift and, entranced, stepped too close and vanished into its edge. Voss shot a cultist point blank, her face twisted in rage, but her platoon fractured. Brothers in arms turned on each other under the influence of phantom betrayals. "Hold the line, damn you!" she yelled, but the horror mounted. A brief alliance formed, Space Marines shielding guardsmen, lasfire supporting bolter barrages, a surge of unity. Thorn wired the melta-charges around the rift's edge, fingers trembling from the psychic static buzzing in his skull. The anomaly tugged at him, a gravitational pull of madness, Lyra's apparition swirling in its depths. "Join me," she pleaded. Thorn snarled, "No," and hit the detonator as the squad retreated. The blast was apocalyptic, rock fracturing, demons wailing as the vortex imploded and the tear collapsed inward. Thorn was tossed through the air, slamming into debris, ears ringing with aftershocks. He crawled to Varric, the captain slumped against a boulder, badly wounded and barely conscious. "The voices, they're endless," Varric wheezed, clutching Thorn's arm with fading strength. "Take command. Silence them, for all of us." His gaze dimmed. A hero felled, leaving Thorn hollowed by loss. The escape was a harrowing gauntlet, tunnels caving in behind them like jaws snapping shut, the earth quaking as if alive with rage. Whispers pursued, now mimicking Varric's timbre. "You failed me, Thorn." Voss's forces dwindled. Many broke under the psychic assault, and some took desperate actions to escape the torment. Thorn carried a wounded guardsman over his shoulder, Voss covering their rear with grim determination. They burst onto the surface amid orbital bombardments, Thunderhawks evacuating the survivors as cyclonic torpedoes ignited Erebus Prime in a planetary pyre. Aboard the strike cruiser Vigilant, Thorn gazed from the viewport at the inferno below. The voices a persistent murmur, an itch burrowing deeper. Voss approached, her uniform torn. "We bought time," she said quietly. "But at what cost?" Thorn had no answer, the weight of command settling like chains. Weeks stretched into a grim routine of repairs and rites aboard the Vigilant, the squad's numbers halved, morale a fragile thread. Thorn promoted to captain in a somber ceremony led by the chaplain. wrestled with doubt in the quiet hours. Lyra's ghost haunting his dreams, Varric's final words echoing. He trained the survivors relentlessly, forging them anew in the armory's clangor. Silas, recovered but scarred, confided his fears. Thorn shared tales of past triumphs to rebuild his spirit, a small uplift. But astropathic messages brought ill tidings, chaos incursions spreading to nearby systems. Duty called, the Imperium's wars never paused. Redeployed to the Ghoul Stars, a fringe of nightmares where Xenos and chaos intertwined, Thorn led his remnants into Necron crypts corrupted by warp essence. The descent mirrored Erebus, eerie silence broken by metallic clanks, tombs awakening with unholy life. Metal phalanxes stirred constructs fused with corrupted material, eyes aglow with demonic hunger. The voices resurged, amplified. Varric awaits in the beyond. Yield. Skirmishes dotted their advance, ambushing flayed ones that moved with horrifying precision, their silent advance a chilling contrast to the warp's babble. In a shadowed tomb, tension coiled as they breached the inner sanctum. A demon prince emerged, an enormous corrupted creature whose presence warped the air. Its weapons seared the atmosphere. Thorn met it in brutal melee, thunderhammer clashing against blade in sparks of warp energy. Visions hammered him. His chapter eradicated, him wandering eternal darkness alone. Blows landed heavy. Thorn's pauldron shattered, pain lancing through him, but he pressed, fueled by rage. Kale's plasma blasts weakened the beast, Silas providing covering fire. With a final bone-shaking strike, Thorn felled the prince. It collapsed in a burst of corrupt energy. As the residue settled, Lyra's laughter rang out, distorted, mocking. The squad extracted amid collapsing ruins, a hard-won triumph that lifted spirits briefly. They shared a rare moment of levity aboard the gunship, toasting fallen brothers with ration packs. But as they boarded the Vigilant once more, Thorn pondered the cycle. Victories bought with blood, whispers ever present. New recruits arrived, green but eager, reminding him of Elias. Training them brought purpose, a peak amid the grind. Yet reports trickled in, more rifts, endless foes. In this endless war, every peak of glory plunged into valleys of loss, and the darkness whispered names, patient as the void itself, waiting for the moment faith cracked. Thorn vowed to endure for Dorn, for the Emperor. But the voices laughed softly, knowing time was on their side.